All right, let's try to write the epsilon delta proof for the squeeze theorem. Right, so here's the statement. We have three functions, f of x, g of x, and h of x. F of x being the smallest one, g of x being the middle one, and h of x being the largest one. If the smallest one, f of x, and the largest one, h of x, both converge to L as x approaches a, then the middle one, g of x, also converges to L as x approaches a. Right, so let's try to prove this. All right, so since we know that the f of x and the g of x both converge to L, let's write the definition. For all epsilon greater than 0, there exists delta 1 and delta 2 greater than 0, such that, right, so f of x converges to L. We know that as long as the distance between x and a is strictly between 0 and delta 1, then we can make sure that the distance between f of x and L is less than epsilon. Since the h of x also converges to L, we can say this. As long as the distance between x and a is strictly between 0 and delta 2, then we can make sure that the distance between h of x and L is less than epsilon. All right, since we want to be able to use both inequalities, I'm going to set delta to be the smaller of the two, delta 1 and delta 2, greater than 0, such that as long as the distance between x and a is strictly between 0 and delta, we can say this, right? I'm going to start with f of x less than or equal to g of x, which is less than or equal to h of x. By subtracting L from all three, we can still preserve the inequalities there, right? Since absolute value of f of x minus L is less than epsilon, we know that f of x minus L is greater than negative epsilon, right? Since absolute value of h of x minus L is less than epsilon, we know that h of x minus L is less than epsilon, right? So if you focus on the inequality for g of x minus L, you can see that the g of x minus L is strictly between negative epsilon and the positive epsilon. So therefore, we know that the absolute value of g of x minus L is less than epsilon. Right? So this concludes the proof of the squeeze theorem. Right? That's it. I hope that this was clear.